So how,
Yeah,
I
so
mean, how do you improve retention?
you have to address residents' needs. You have to have a good property manager who knows what they're doing. Have to take work orders and get them done in a timely fashion. Can't have problem residents. Sometimes you can have a bad resident who's like running off other people.
Been there, done that many times.
I mean, we've had a few drug dealer residents before that we've had to run off, call the cops on, stuff like that. But if you have a family, you got little kids running around, you don't want that in your property, and so they're going to go find somewhere else that's safer. So you have
No, I
to.
agree 100%.
I think for the most part, most people want a safe place to live, especially if they have kids. Versus maybe if you're in a college town or something, people really want more fun stuff to do versus safety and community. So. Welcome to the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast, where precision meets performance in commercial real estate. I'm your host, Jason Williams, and every week we deep dive into the strategies and systems and stories behind rock solid underwriting. Whether you're a seasoned analyst, an up-and-coming investor, or a commercial real estate professional looking to sharpen your edge, this show is your front row seat to expert insights, emerging trends, and real-world underwriting tactics that stand the test of time and scrutiny. From market assumptions to debt structuring, cap rates to cash flow, we're cutting through the noise and getting to the numbers that matter. So sharpen your pencils and fire up those models. Let's get to work. This is Ironclad Underwriting. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Williams, and I got my good friend, business partner, co-host, Frank. How are you doing, Frank?
Another good day trying to make money, sir.
That's what we always seem to be doing, and hopefully we'll be successful one of these days at it. So
So the next time I should say another good day making money instead of trying to.
it depends on if you're making it or if you're just trying to. Right now, I'm
We've had
just
a good
trying to.
month. We've had a good month, so I can't complain.
So our last few episodes, we've been talking about the real cost of vacancy, and I wanted to wrap up that little mini series with this last episode, which is what if we don't have a vacancy? What if we spend more time and effort into retaining residents versus turnovers and stuff like that? So that's what we're going to talk about today: is retention versus renewals.
Right?
Yeah, you have any anecdotes or stories or anything like that before we get started? Because you always have all the good stories.
Well, I mean, my biggest concern based on what you said so far is when you have a market where rents are moving quickly up and you decide to keep someone and you start to have a bigger loss to lease because of it. But we'll talk about it. I'm sure I'll have stories as we go.
Okay, so that is a good point. Is it's easier to charge a higher rent for a new resident than it is to charge a higher rent for an existing long-term resident who may or may not be able to handle it or afford it. So
Oh, especially when you do that for I'm thinking more smaller properties, but especially when you're nice and your management's not as professional as it should be, and you start to have a rather large gap.
I
Like,
have personally seen this in some of my single family residences
yes.
where you're charging rent, and yeah, you might be increasing it 1 to 2% a year, but after 5 years you're 150 200 below market, and it's hard to jump that big of a gap.
We had a property that we took over that the range was actually $700 um between market and what was the actual rents.
Yeah.
I mean, did they and we estimated $10,000 work a piece on the units. It was a fast growing market in Massachusetts. So I mean, different caliber. Sometimes 700 sounds like the rents in some of the parts of the country, but it's just amazing. I think we ended up raising on average $500 a month per unit.
Yeah, and another thing is if you have a resident who's not leaving, you can't really renovate that unit. If you
Yep.
can't renovate that unit, then you can't justify the increase in rent. So yeah, so with that, so you can And then, like you said, or like what I just said, is you're going to renovate a unit. What does it cost to renovate a unit? Let's look at just a small unit, an apartment, instead of like a single family. Because I mean, granted, you can get some apartment units bigger than single family houses, but if you're looking at, say, a $3,000 turn and 1 month of vacancy, is it worth $200 a month um, difference in rent? You know, and so let's see, what would that be? Pull out my trusty calculator here.
So you're saying $3,000 of upgrades at $200 a month difference?
Yeah, plus 1 month of vacancy. So really, it depends on what. Let's assume maybe 1,200 a month.
Okay.
So
Good thing
it's
you have
at
your trusty calculator there.
that's what 4,500. No, 4,200.
Yep, 4,200. Yep.
So it would be what, 21 months worth. So if you can reduce the rent by 200, or if you're below market rent for 200, then it makes sense to do that, right?
For a 1 year lease, yes.
For a
The
1 year
problem, the
lease.
other problem, like you're saying, is that the catch up, especially if somebody stays, the catch up will be more painful the next year.
Yeah. Um, and then usually your turn is going to be more expensive as well. The
Absolutely.
longer somebody stays in a unit, the more expensive the turn usually is. I mean, granted, you do have some immaculate residents who keep their unit like spick and span, but generally that is not the case from my experience. So
Yeah, I mean, every market's different, and I wish I could get $3,000 turns on some of these properties. Um, I'm not even talking
and
about heavy turns. I'm just talking like medium turns. 3,000. We
so
usually sit
so
around
it's
that.
like a $3,000 turn. That's not even really renovating. That's just getting it ready for the next person.
Yeah,
So
paint has gotten so expensive. Everything else.
paint, maybe resurfacing countertops or tubs or something,
Yep.
cleaning the floors. So yeah, 3,000 is not much of a renovation at all. So, but also one thing that we have also experienced is the tenant quality. If you have a resident who pays rent on the first of every month without fail, never's late, that says a lot. And sometimes it's worth maybe accepting a little bit less than.
Absolutely, especially when they're not causing other problems with the neighbors or calling you for things that are not really problems every couple days, stuff like that.
Yeah. And also my experience with those people are they're the ones who keep the units immaculate. So more typically.
Yep.
So the cheapest unit to fill is the one that never went vacant. But there's could be a downside for it. Um so we already talked about some math. Make ready. Let's look at this one. When we talked about turnover from the first episode of this series, make ready was at about 800, vacancy lost to lease was about 900 for about 3 weeks of lost rent. Leasing fee 600, concession another 600. So total turn be 2,900. So that could be where the
About three
3,000
thousand
from.
bucks.
Yep. So lose 2,900 and maybe get a new tenant at $50 a month more, or keep the resident and keep it rent low or $50 lower. So that's sort of what we just talked about with different numbers.
So option one, you're saying turn the unit
So you can.
to get the extra $50. Is that worth it because you have so much of a turnover cost? Another option is what?
So you can renew with an incentive. You can offer the resident $100 a month discount to renew, or maybe $100 for a couple of months, not for like over 12 months. People respond to incentives differently, and if you offer them like $100 discount for 2 months, it's a whole lot different than for the year. But still, even if you do it for the whole year, that's $1,200 versus 2,900. So you're up ahead 17. But then again, if you're looking at more than just a 12-month lease or 12-month time period, you're going to be behind in like 2 or 3 years. So sometimes this could be like a good band-aid, but not necessarily the long-term solution, you know?
Yeah, good Band-Aid, especially if you're below 90% occupied. I think we've talked about this, but I'm a firm believer that you lose almost all of your pricing power when you're below 90% occupied.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're below 90, and sometimes if you're even below 95, you don't have a say in what you can charge residents because they'll move on to another property, and you will feel it, as we've discussed in the previous episodes, and the real costs of vacancies. So, let's see.
So why might you give concessions? So we just talked about if you have an occupancy issue, if you have a good tenant, um, what are other
If
things that you can think of?
if your market rent hasn't really increased dramatically, then there's really no benefit in getting somebody new in there. Say you have a resident who's decent, pays within the first 5 days of the month. They live in a renovated unit. They're paying market rent. You don't want them to leave because they're already pretty much paying the most you can get out of them. And if they do leave, then you have to spend all your turnover costs, and you're not going to really have that much upside in rent.
What's the
So,
most you've ever spent on one unit? Not a single family home, but on a rental for a remodel.
so for a remodel versus just a turnover,
Yeah, a remodel. Well, that's what you're talking about. You said someone that's been there a long time, so it would
well,
need
no,
significant.
I said this guy, they're already living in a renovated unit.
Oh,
They're
okay, okay.
they're paying market rent.
But still, what's the most you think we've ever spent on a remodel for one unit
So going from a classic to a
renovated?
renovated unit, I'm thinking I think it's under 10K, 7,500 to 10K in that range, depending on what needed to be done. And that typically was including a subfloor and flooring issue because of pets and stuff.
Right. But this was not a bathroom remodel, full bathroom remodel. This was not a full kitchen upgrade, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we had to replace counter or no
Yeah.
cabinetry in one unit. So kitchen
I'm just saying on
cabinetry.
some properties and some markets, we've blown $25,000 like it was nothing.
Yeah.
It's painful. Good thing the rent's
And and that goes into one, and this is sort of a side topic. One, the class of property you have. Are you intentionally doing that to raise it from like a C to a B to an A or whatever? Or is that just maintaining something that's already in pretty bad shape? Because
yeah, that's true too. Oof.
a lot of C properties, you can have a lot of deferred maintenance that you have to account for. Now, granted, when you do your due diligence, you should be budgeting for that anyway. So it shouldn't really be a shock to your pocketbook whenever you do something like that. So,
So why might you you know, why might you make the decision to let the tenant go instead of the concessions?
um, you mentioned it before, or really the opposite of what you mentioned. You mentioned good residents who keep to themselves, pay on time. You have anyone who's the exact opposite, one who causes problems with other residents, one who doesn't pay on time, professional tenants. We deal a few times a year with some of those who learn how to play the games and play the court systems to stay in their units longer. So those are the harder ones to get out, but that's one I would definitely want to get out of.
I know some
Um,
people that when they have chronic late payers, they keep them around because they want the late fees.
so are they just
They're paying,
paying?
but they're just always paying late. Sometimes they might go to collections, but then they usually catch up again, stuff like that.
So
I'm not saying it's a
we
good strategy. I'm just saying I know people that do. Some operators do that.
and again, it goes with if you're sitting below 90%, and these late payers are paying, they might be a month or two behind, but they still pay. You might keep them on, but if they get more than 2 months behind, there's a very good chance you're not going to collect any of that.
Yeah, no,
So
I agree with
if
that.
if they're just paying at the end of the month and paying late fees all the time, then yeah, that's fine. And ideally, you would want to work with them to start helping them save money. And we've had managers who've gotten on like a payment plan, so they pay a little bit extra until they get a month ahead, and then they can go back to paying at their normal time, which would then be before it was due than after it was due. So I mean, the more you can work with your residents, the better residents they'll be, the more they'll like you, and the more they'll hang around and be better residents and talk up your property too. So, um, another reason to get rid of somebody is if they're paying way below market.
Yeah,
Um, so like
that's what I
whenever
was talking
you
about.
when you were you bought a property and you were 700 below market and you increased the rents on the existing people, how many people moved out because they didn't want to pay that versus how many sucked it up and paid it anyway?
So I would say number one, it was a hot market. Number two, I mean, some of these people had not seen a rent increase in 10 years. So there was a combination of things. Number one, you had some people that were obviously super pissed and they said they were going to go somewhere else, and then they never ended up going somewhere else because they realized that the rent we were increasing them to was still below anything they can get anywhere else. Um, the next type of people were people that were that understood, realized that they had gotten a deal for the last decade, and took it, took the increase, and was still happy because it was below market. And obviously, we still had to evict a couple people. We did work with a lot of people. We actually moved some people between units. You know, you had somebody that was living in a three bedroom. A three bedroom might be going for $2,100 a month, but they live by themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, let's switch you up to a one bedroom, save you a little bit of money, and they're willing to do it. So there's a combination. I don't have the exact numbers though.
So I would imagine, or I would probably fall into the category of I am knowingly paying less than what I should be paying and happy, and then I accept it whenever it catches up. But I imagine there's some people who are just built in their ways and then they get upset about it. I might say I'm upset, but I mean, I would understand.
You know, something else we did, we worked with some people that legitimately should, because of their income structure, they legitimately should have been on some type of housing assistance, but they weren't because they were paying such low rent. So we did work with some people to help get them on housing assistance.
Okay. So, so we talked about chronic late payers, problem tenants, way below market, unit destroyers. There are some of those people who don't treat your property very well and poke holes in walls for no reason, or they have pets that destroy things. So that's another reason to get rid of somebody.
Let's talk about
Uh,
annual turnover.
Annual turnover.
Yeah, you know, when you think about retention, I mean, what type of the renewals? Some people do a better job of looking at those KPIs than others. I know that we could probably do a little better on it. But I mean, when we have one property that just not turn it, the number of turns is crazy. We're always remodeling units. We always, I mean, it's standard to have some, but it just seemed like it's more than average.
Yeah, so what we currently want is you want say 50 to actually one of our properties I was thinking was about 80% renewal. People were staying, they want to stay. Ideally you want to be above 50% anyway. If you're below 50, that something's going on with the property. Their management's not doing something right. They're not doing work orders right, or they have bugs or something that's gross. There's a reason people are leaving versus like a standard 50 to 60% renewal. If you're above 60% renewal, then you're doing something right, and the residents like to stay there. So I think a few of our we always ask. I always ask why someone's moving out whenever there's going to be like a notice to vacate. And actually, the biggest number that I see, or the reason why the most people leave from our good property, is they're going to buy a house.
Yep.
I really can't compete with that. I mean, if they can buy a house, good for them.
We've definitely had that issue on some properties. We have a property, our West Virginia property. We have three people that have moved out in the past year. It's not a big property. We've had three people that are buying houses or building houses.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're just people who want to start a family, want to have a dog in the yard and take care of stuff and grill in their backyard. I mean, I understand it. I have a house myself that I do all that on. So,
Yep.
but then again, we also have residents who've been there for 20 plus years. They've been through several owners, because typically ownership is what, maybe 5 to 7 years on our properties. So, um,
So how,
yeah.
I
So,
mean, how do you improve retention?
how do I improve retention?
Yeah.
You have to address residents' needs. You have to have a good property manager who knows what they're doing. Have to take work orders and get them done in a timely fashion. Um, can't have problem residents. Sometimes you can have a bad resident who's like running off other people.
Been there,
Um,
done that many times.
I mean, we've had a few drug dealer residents before that we've had to run off, call the cops on, stuff like that. But if you have a family, you got little kids running around, you don't want that in your property, and so they're going to go find somewhere else that's safer. And so you have
No, I
to.
agree 100%. We had a property in, I won't even mention what state it was in, but just the way it worked out, the layout of the property, it basically became a cut through from the street in front to the street behind. And there was a drug dealer on property, stuff like that. So the number of cars that were traversing our parking lot was a little high. I mean, what we could have done is we could have put out a toll booth, but instead we put like two mini speed bumps, and we got rid of the drug dealer. So that greatly decreased the number of people that were driving through the property.
That'll work. Also, one of our properties has a sheriff there who lives on site, and we give him a concession, and he parks his car out so it's prominent. You can see a police car there, and he'll walk the property like once a night. He'll walk his dog around the property. Um, and so just having that sense of safety gives people a reason to stay there as well. So
Okay.
I think for the most part, most people want a safe place to live, especially if they have kids versus maybe if you're in a college town or something, people really want more fun stuff to do versus safety and community. So,
Yep.
um, what about you? What do you think are some good ways to retain people?
I'm always a fan of small upgrades. So, I mean, we've definitely had places that we've upgraded refrigerators. We've put in ceiling fans over time, stuff like that. It provides value to the current resident. It provides value to the property. It's a win-win, especially if they want to stay around. We've also offered like specials where if you pay if you pay your rent on time, this isn't every property. This is just different examples. Every tenant that pays their rent on time for 12 months straight, there might be a raffle, and there's going to be one winner. Then they might win $100 gift card, stuff like that.
Okay.
Those things, anything that builds community, helps with retention, right? I mean, we have someone that maybe we should have on the podcast at some point. I'm thinking about that. She always has great examples of building community for tenants.
Yeah. Um, Also, one thing that our property manager does is they start reaching out when lease renewals are coming up. They're
Yep.
looking out 90 to 60 days before it's due. And they continue reaching out every 30 days until the renewal if they haven't already renewed. So
I
that's
mean,
another.
yeah, we've really lucked out as well. I mean, we have one property, more than one property now, where the on-site manager literally lives on the property. If they're good, you can't beat that. You know, they know all the tenants, they know the stories, they know what's going on, they know exactly what's going on. Stuff
Yeah.
like that. That helps.
They're part of it. They're living it every
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
So,
Even on their days off.
um, resident events. This is, from what I've seen, this helps some residents, but I know whenever I was a resident of apartments, I never attended any events, and typically there's maybe like 10 to 20% of the whole complex that always hits every event, and then it's like the 80-20 type rule where
Yeah, Pareto principle. I think some of it has to do with the makeup of your tenant base compared to what the events are. If you have a tenant base that's more family oriented, or have kids, I mean, obviously the Halloween event would be bigger. The opening of the pool, Memorial Day event would be bigger, stuff like that. If you have a
or
different resident base, I mean, it's not like you're going to offer free alcohol at the clubhouse, stuff like
yeah.
that. So it's tough to
I,
get some residents motivated for a
I
certain event.
guess if you have a lot of kids on property, you can do like movie nights and stuff like that
Yeah.
with free popcorn, stuff that kids enjoy doing. So
But I mean, one option, just to go with what you're saying, if you're in an area that has a big in the southern part of the country that has a big football presence, like a football team or something, you could do a barbecue where during a sports game or something like that on a Sunday. That'd probably be pretty popular.
yeah, put it up on like a projector screen or something like that, or
Yeah,
in the clubhouse. Yeah, BYOB, that would bring people in too.
that sounds like an insurance nightmare, but yes,
Well, I mean, I don't think it would be that big of a deal because I mean they're gonna
I'm
do
just
it
playing with you.
anyway.
It's no, it would definitely help build a community.
So
But that's all I
so
can
yeah,
think about. You know?
yeah. Um, communication key with your residents. I mean, that's it, find out what they want and try to provide it to them at an affordable manner for everybody. So
Yeah, and not just the rent number.
yep.
Like responding quickly to maintenance requests, taking care of issues with our taking care of problems when they happen, stuff like that.
Fixing the grill or something out in the common area just so that they have a place to grill on their own if they don't have their own grill or something.
Making
So
sure the pool opens on time.
making sure it's clean and passes inspection. So
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
yep. So that's how you can save money through retention versus vacancy and turnover. So and I think that wraps up our series pretty well. So if you want to listen to more and you
Nice.
didn't catch all of the other ones, this should be what part 5 of this series now. So there's 4 other parts you can go and listen to, which are immediately before this. So they should all be in order. So if you have any ideas on how you keep retention up, drop them in the comments or reach out to Frank and me. We are on all social media platforms. I'm mostly on LinkedIn. Frank's mostly on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep.
Um, but we're always interested in learning what other people are doing because it's a toolbox and we only have the tools in our own toolbox and we always like to add more tools to it. So
Sounds good.
this was the real costs of vacancy part 5 and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Ironclad Underwriting Podcast. If you got value from today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, rate, and share the show. And don't forget to connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or check us out at our website at ironcladunderwriting.com for more insights and updates. If you have a question, a deal you're analyzing, or a topic you want us to tackle, shoot us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep your assumptions grounded, your models sharp, and your underwriting ironclad.